Hey YouTube, this will be week 24 of the YouTube Pagan Challenge, and this week's topic is how does spirituality relate to your mundane life? And I decided I would go a little bit out of the box and go with a surprise spiritual practice. It wasn't something I set out to be that way, and that would be the care of my sourdough starters. Why it became a spiritual practice is it's definitely connecting with all four elements. Now, caring for the starters themselves is really more of three. You have to make the bread to actually get fire into it. But connecting with ancestors, I mean, sourdough starters have been kept in various areas around the world since ancient Egypt. So here we have my traditional sourdough starter. This is Frankie. You can see the bubbles down here, which means it's alive. And over here I have Herman, which is a milk-based starter that became quite popular around, I think, like 70s and 80s. There's lots of backstory with Herman. I had done Herman before and kind of gave up on it after a time. Not willing to take the plunge and do the traditional sourdough starter because everywhere I had looked, they made it out like it was this huge major hassle. And it is, a little bit. I think that can be kind of the problem with people who say that spirituality and mundane life is integrated, because it is. But I also think that you have to be a little bit outside of your comfort zone and doing something that's a little bit of a pain in the ass before you'll have any major breakthrough. So, first things first, I'm going to split Herman in half. I have a mixing bowl here, just has flour in it. So I'm going to add this cup of goop. For anyone who wants to know, it's got about 4 cups of flour in that. So I'm just going to set that over there because that's not the most important bit. The most important bit here is getting it fed. Kitchen scale, very handy. You don't have to have it. There are ways to feed it without, but I've had a scale, so I use it. Now, one other thing is their little homes, their little jars they live in, have been thoroughly scrubbed. I will post a picture of what they look like over the course of before they're cleaned, which is also a, you know, it's kind of a rebirth in a way each time you clean the jars up. Need 4 ounces of flour, which I have right here, to which I add, this is lukewarm water. Four ounces of water. And I'll mix this. And one of the things that gets with Frankie's a little bit more near and dear to my heart because the only thing that's ever gone into this little mixture is flour and water, and that's it. And I started it last December, so it's been going for a good 6 months now. I had this cord was initially what kept the covers on before I bought these particular jars, which I got at TJ Maxx. They were only a couple of bucks. I kind of wish that I had got the middle-sized jar instead of the small one, but it still works. They had 3 different sizes, and I got the large one and the small one. But it's a good place to check if you've got one in your area. If not, I mean, you just need any jar. I prefer the wide mouth jars because it makes it easier to mix them. Now I'm adding this gloop, the Frankie food. Into the measuring cup. It helps keep the jar just a little bit more clean. Obviously, when it's not the first day, it is mixed up inside the jar, and that's why they start to get messy. And I have to reach in. This is why wide mouth jars are important, because I can reach in with a measuring cup and scoop out whatever I need for making that day's bread. But as you can tell here, like, this mixing gets it messy on the sides. So it's easier to mix it ahead of time a little bit. So, and what's fun with this is I don't think I can manage to get a decent shot. You can see bubbles at the top. I could try. They start to bubble like almost immediately. It just starts to pop bubbles up at the top. So, that's Frankie. Frankie, traditional sourdough starter. It's kind of a joke to name them because they become kind of a pet. One thing I didn't grab for this is an actual spatula to scrape it into the jar, so we'll just have to wait for that. Now, Herman, this is one, like I said, it was popular in the 70s and 80s. The theory was that it was during the kind of Mother Earth hippie type of movement, salt to go in with the bread that is Frankie's. I don't know. I wasn't around at that particular time, but I did find what blew my mind, because my great-grandfather's name on my grandpa's side is named Herman. And I found all these note cards at one point that were, here's what you do with Herman. The first day you get Herman, you feed him. And I was like, what the heck? Is this some sort of joke? And then I found out about this. It was this. It wasn't some joke with the children about Herman. So, Herman's food. 1 cup of flour. He's not by weight. He's by volume. 1 cup of milk. Now this is where people are going to go, what the hell? Yep, it's milk. And yes, I leave it on the counter. It took me ages to actually trust that it would be fine on the counter because it's milk, and milk spoils, right? Well, the way that the yeast makes it an acidic environment makes it to where the icky stuff isn't what's going to make it survive. 1/2 cup sugar, which is a lot of sugar. This is not for the carb watchers. There's a running joke, because I have some friends who prefer to not include gluten in their diet. So there's the running joke that I'm the gluten dealer. So in this bowl, we do the same thing, mix it up, the flour, the milk, and the sugar. It took me, like I said, because of the milk on it and keeping it in the counter. You can keep this in the fridge. If it makes you feel more comfortable to keep it in the fridge, absolutely keep it in the fridge. Now that it's getting to summertime, I might do that just because it's been more hungry. It wants fed more often than the typical schedule. with these, and why it became a surprise spiritual practice, is this is something you have to, care for. It goes just outside your comfort zone. And as I said, it's connecting with the elements. It's connecting with ancestors. Herman maybe a little bit less so. But there is a term for the sourdough starters that are kept with milk. So it's not exactly a completely new practice. It's not going to like being in this measuring cup. It's a 4-cup measuring cup. Herman has a freaking lot. You can do a little Herman. But it's the ongoing care, it's energy put into this that is reciprocated, which is very similar to what, if anyone does any offerings to any deities or land spirits or anything, the whole point is, as the ADF put it, I give so you can give. So I care for these so that they can continue to make bread for the family. I actually have a cookbook that's ancient, like 80s. You can find it on Amazon. But it has a whole bunch of, it's the best of the Herman Sourdough Herald. It's Herman recipes. Pretty much with Frankie, I just do bread. Mainly no-knead type of breads where I just plop everything into a bowl, stir it, let ferment like overnight or a couple hours, it depends. Like the weather here right now isn't the greatest. But it depends, because the one thing about traditional sourdough, as opposed to the commercial yeast, which Herman's recipes use a lot of the commercial yeast. Which I have some here. It smells like beer. They have it as a sort of insurance that it will rise. You can totally just use straight up Herman without the commercial yeast. But that's what I liked. This one makes lovely loaves of bread. I will get a picture up at the end of a loaf of bread that I recently made. Probably won't be this one, but it could be. But it's that care and feeding. And I also found that I give so you can give. It's the reciprocal energy exchange in a form that is really easy to kind of make malleable. What I also found is a lot of Hellenic recons have a little jar that is to Zeus. There's a specific name for it, like Catheskos or something like that. I saw, there's a video, I may link to it. But you have a jar that you put things to bring prosperity, and it's put it in your pantry, and it's supposed to bring prosperity and those types of things. And then every month on the dark moon, you dump out that jar and you clean it, you scrub it, and this is sort of a parallel to that practice. It just happens to be sourdough starters and bread making instead of other pastas and things along that line, and they require, I generally try and clean them out once a week because they get kind of you'll have stuff stuck to the sides, you get little black spots, which isn't anything icky, it's not mold, it's dead yeast. Because I will post a picture before these 2 jars, as I said, before they were washed up. You get black that's not mold, or kind of technically is, since yeast is a fungus, kind of. So, if you, it's a nice little experiment, and something fun to try. But yeah, there's lots. This is a cross-cultural thing. I mean, there's there's lots of references to daily bread across cultures. Bread is a food that exists in just about every culture in existence. I don't want to be, like, I want to say some form of bread exists in every single culture around the world, whether it is leavened or unleavened. And that's what yeast is. It's a leavening agent. We also have, baking soda and baking powder to allow a chemical reaction, which, interestingly enough, you can use the sourdough starters in those because it's acidic. So it will create the chemical reaction as if you were using buttermilk or other things like that would be highly acidic. Believe it or not, a delicious recipe, sourdough banana bread. It's fantastic. So that will be about it for the care and keeping of Frankie and Herman and a spiritual practice that relates into mundane life. I hope I touched a little bit on that. I do think that any spiritual practice does need to be just outside your comfort zone in order to be any sort of transformative thing. That's why you repeat them. It becomes ingrained into your life, which is a very important thing, but you can't just go through your day-to-day life without doing something outside your comfort zone, suspending your disbelief a little bit. It takes a multitude of things to kind of get it to mesh and weave well together. So, that'll be it.